Some of you might remember a game I worked on a bit ago. I made a few videos about it and I also made a trailer for it. The game was called Melodic Massacre. Well, I decided to rethink the entirety of the game because it had so many problems and I couldn't figure out how to fix them, so I just thought, let's restart. For those who don't know, Melodic Massacre is a 2D top-down twin-stick shooter action game. Oh, that's a mouthful. And the main mechanic in the game is that your weapon is your guitar. You throw that guitar and you can dash towards it. I had been planning on restarting it for a while already, but before I actually did, I was bored and I decided to make some art for it to see what the game would look like if I did a good job. I had something I really liked pretty quickly and that made me really motivated to start working on it. So I started the next day and I did a lot on that day. But first, I'm going to talk about what my plan is for this game, hence episode 0. The original game was planned to be completely linear, like 6 quote-unquote worlds, and with one boss in each world. But I completely changed that in this new version. Now the plan is to have a sort of open world. There will be 4 open areas with 2 bosses in each, and the areas will be opened linearly. The next area will open if you have beaten all the bosses in your current area. This is all subject to change, by the way, but I assume you already understand that. The game will not start in one of these open areas. The plan for the game is to start off in a smaller area that is linear to make the player get used to the game and make him understand the controls and everything. That smaller area will serve as a sort of tutorial and will also have its own boss, again to introduce it. And I'm also planning on making this the demo for the game, but we'll see. In the original you had only one guitar and there were multiple different weapons planned. What it decided to do was to scrap the multiple different weapons thing and just keep it to a sword as a melee option, which I really like. And because I decided to remove those extra weapons, I decided to add more guitar options instead. So you can equip the guitar you most like or the guitar that is the best in a certain situation. I haven't thought through about the different types of guitars I'm going to add really. I'm probably going to add like 10 different types. So like you can get 2 guitars in each area, but it might be up to 3 in each area. But again, we'll see. A problem that I had with the original was the movement started to feel a bit stiff and one-noted after a while. So I came up with a bit more complicated movement system. Of course I kept the movement as simple as I could, so you can understand more easily and it's easier to pick up. I did change the feeling of the guitar dash too a lot, because in the original the player would stop immediately when they had gotten the guitar. But now the player keeps moving for a bit because they keep their momentum. And it takes a few seconds to slow down, or I think about a second. The biggest change I made to the normal bass movement was adding a short directional dash to quickly dodge things such as projectiles. I also added a sort of run, but I'm not sure if I'll keep that in because it doesn't seem that useful. Overall, the movement feels a lot more versatile and it gives the player a lot more options and it feels really good. The basic enemy is mostly the same as in the original game. There are differences of course, and most enemies in the game will also have these things that the basic enemy has. To make it a bit easier to code for me. So, the enemies roam around randomly, but in this version, the roaming is restricted to an area around the spawn point of enemy. This ensures that the enemy placement won't change too much from what I initially intended. The enemies will start following the player when the player is in a certain distance away from the enemy. This was also in the original, but now the player can see this because I added an exclamation point above the enemy when they notice the player. I made 2 other enemies. One was based on the small, faster enemy from the original game. It's just faster. And the other was based off an enemy that throws stuff in the original. I think it's more interesting to talk about the throwing enemy, so let's do that. This enemy just throws things at the player and they just walk towards them when they have noticed them. This was all the enemy did in the original. It still does this, but it also, in the original, it made them seem pretty stupid. I mean, why would you try to get as close to someone as possible while that person can hurt you when you throw things? So what I did was I made the enemy try to stay a certain distance away from the player. This makes it hard for the player to attack the enemy with their melee attack. So they would need to use their guitar to attack this enemy. But the enemy is a bit slower than the player and they stop when they throw things. So, because of those 2 things, it's still possible to attack the enemies, these enemies, with the melee attack, but it's a bit harder. So there are a few questions you might still have about the release of the game and stuff. And the most common questions will probably be, when will the game be done? And when will it be released? So I'm going to try to finish the game in 6 to 8 months. I'm trying to keep it short so I won't get bored of making the game. And the release date is of course not set yet, but I do want it to be somewhere next year, somewhere during the summer preferably. But I'm not going to make promises for that far in the future, so I'm just going to say the game will be released. Yeah. I just mentioned my upcoming game, A Strange Hotel, which will come out in 3 days. That seems so insane because right now while I'm recording this, it's still 13 days away. But right now when this video goes up, it's 3 days away. So I hope you are all ready for that. And if you didn't know yet, you can already download the demo for the game. It's free. And if you ever want to talk to me or people from the community, just join our Discord. I'm always up for a talk. Link it down in the description. And if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. That would make me really happy. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Hopefully. Bye!